Is depression really caused by a chemical imbalance in the brain? Most modern mental health professionals will tell you this is an outdated perspective, but some doctors might still tell you otherwise. So what's the truth and why does it matter? For more than 50 years now, the medical profession and perhaps more importantly, the pharmaceutical industry has operated on the theory that depression is pathological in origin, with some of us just born with a chemical imbalance in the brain that means we don't naturally produce enough serotonin. But in recent years, this theory started to garner less and less support. Perhaps one of the reasons for this was that it only ever was a theory with no reputable scientific evidence to back it up. So if you haven't already, then I strongly urge you to read the book Lost Connections by Johann Hari, where he takes a 40,000-mile journey around the world to interview the best minds doing the best work in this field and discovers that the chemical imbalance theory has very much had its day. If you're not much of a reader, then you can also check out his TED Talk about his findings. I'll link to that in the description. But debating the cause of depression isn't really what I want to talk about in this video. What I do want to talk about is why what we believe to be the cause of our depression is important when it comes to us actually dealing with it. Many people I've spoken to in the past have told me, and many of you watching this video might agree, that getting told their depression was caused by faulty brain chemistry was actually helpful. There are three main reasons why this can be the case. Firstly, it provides an answer. Where we might have for so long been struggling and wondering why we feel the way we feel, being told there's a reason, no matter what that is, can be a huge relief. As much as we don't want to be clinically depressed, what's worse is feeling the way we do with no explanation. Second reason, it takes away any blame. Often when we experience the symptoms of depression, it's really common to feel at fault in some way, like we're being weak or just not trying hard enough to be happy. However, being told this is pathological potentially allows us to let go of any idea that we have a choice in this. Third reason, diagnosis encourages the pursuit of treatment. Once we've had a formal diagnosis of an issue, then it allows us to get treatment for that issue. If we're coming from a position of not knowing why we feel how we feel and are thereby powerless to take steps towards changing it, it can be incredibly empowering to finally have an answer. Having a name for our problem means we can start to research and seek out a solution. Now, as good as these three reasons sound, whilst we might think a diagnosis of a chemical imbalance is helpful, I want to explain why in the long term it does us no favours at all. The first thing to say is that having some kind of explanation as to why we feel a certain way might seem helpful, but if it's the wrong explanation, then that's no help at all. Even those that support the chemical imbalance theory also accept that it's never the sole cause of depression. Environmental and psychological causes are generally accepted to be the main players in why we become depressed. Believing the cause to be biochemical means we're stuck embracing a delusion rather than seeking out the truth. If we believe the reason we're depressed is because we're just wired up wrong, this stops us from finding the actual reason, which is often more personal to us as an individual than a blanket catch-all medical diagnosis can accommodate. And here's why this is important. A study in 2014 showed that people given a false diagnosis of depression and told it had a biochemical origin actually became more depressed and pessimistic about their future as a result of that information. And here's why. It's important to note here that depression isn't simply extreme sadness. Depression is better described as the inability to see the possibility of future happiness. Human beings are able to tolerate a lot of darkness in their lives without becoming depressed. It's only when we no longer see the possibility of coming out of that darkness that we might succumb to depression. In that respect, the antidote to depression is hope. The chemical imbalance model ultimately destroys hope. It suggests our issue is pathological and permanent, rather than something we can work our way beyond. This is why the people in the study became more depressed when presented with the medical model of depression, because it meant that any action they took would always be simply managing their ongoing depression, rather than possibly working their way the other side of it. Those conducting the study also noticed that when people believed their depression was biochemical in origin, that knowledge didn't actually stop them from beating themselves up and blaming themselves for their depression. So the idea that a biochemical explanation stops us from blaming ourselves is also false. I think this is because once we believe we're in some way inherently broken or malfunctioning, that entirely invalidates our journey and the struggles we've been through. We're told that in spite of all the trauma, the loss and the heartache, the reason we feel depressed is more to do with the fact that there's something wrong with our brain. This does nothing to alleviate any guilt we carry about the way we are. If anything, it exacerbates it. Also, when addressing that third idea that being given a biochemical origin story enables us to seek out treatment, it really only encourages us to seek out medication. A few years back, Professor Irving Kirsch compiled a study, which is described in his 2009 book, The Emperor's New Drugs, that reveals antidepressants to have no greater level of effectiveness in relieving depression than the application of a placebo. Now, don't get me wrong, even the placebo effect can be genuinely life-saving, and there'll be many watching this video who will attest to the positive benefits of receiving antidepressant medication. But when it comes to combating depression, there might be more hope on the horizon than the idea we will now need to be medicated for the rest of our life. But that hope only really becomes an option if we can let go of the idea that depression is, for some of us, our natural state. So it seems that when it comes to our understanding of what causes depression, what we believe directly affects how depressed we become and how likely we are to find our way out the other side. As a friend of mine once put it, if we're sitting in a pitch black room, we're unlikely to move if we think that the darkness is all there is. Believing depression is purely explained by a chemical imbalance in the brain suggests to us that there's nothing else out there. However, if we find out that somewhere in this room there's a light switch, then we instantly become motivated to seek it out. In truth, there's always a light, because we weren't just born into darkness, and that light is just waiting to be found. Understanding how the things we've been through and the environment we exist in directly affect our mood and our outlook on life is the first step to finding that light and coming out of the darkness. I really hope this video has been of value. Please let me know your thoughts. Were you told depression was caused by a chemical imbalance? How did that information affect you? Does it help you to have another answer? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, please ask me any questions you have about this video. Please hit that thumbs up button if you like what I do, and why not subscribe to the channel for weekly mind coaching tips and anxiety advice. Remember, I do a weekly live Q&A every Friday at 6 p.m. London time where you can ask me your questions, so please join me for that. Also, you can now become a member of this channel and receive extra content every week, including video tutorials of my full system for change with extra insights and exclusive weekly live streams. Just hit the join button that you'll find on the homepage. But that's it for now. I'm Tim Box, Mind Coach. Always remember to be kind to your mind, and I'll see you next time.